Hey, thanks for gathering up. So I'm wearing my Husker shirt today because go Huskers! We have a Husker, deal going on, and some of you could care less about football, but I actually loved football, and I loved playing football in high school. And one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons I loved playing football in high school is because that was the only place that I was aware of where you could actually hit someone so hard that you just laid them out and you didn't go to jail. You didn't get arrested. It's like, this is awesome. This is awesome. And the thing is, you got to quit playing. I don't know why we quit playing. We should have therapy football sessions for midlife, people. I'm thinking, wouldn't that be? I mean, it wouldn't be very fun to watch, but it would be therapeutic. It'd be fantastic. But today I want to talk to us about an emotion that all of us feel. All of us deal with it. In fact, on a daily basis, I guarantee you that we deal with it. And yet, sometimes we don't know what to do with it. In fact, I would say the church hasn't done a very good job in helping us be able to navigate this particular emotion. And some of the other emotions, when they don't get addressed very well, they actually evolve or devolve into this emotion. And this emotion is so powerful. It has the potential to ruin your life if you let it rule your life. In fact, I would say you probably have every reason, and you probably figured out what emotion we're talking about. You probably have every reason to be angry. But you just need to know that it has the power to ruin your life if you let it rule your life. And the scriptures have a lot to say about anger, and the church has said a lot about anger, and in some ways I think maybe it's been helpful, but in so many ways the church just has not done a good job of helping people navigate this emotion, and consequently we let it rule our lives, and it begins to ruin our lives, and it leaks out on everyone around us and affects us. It is impossible. It's impossible for us to follow Jesus well when this emotion is controlling us and ruling our lives. So what I would like to do today is I want to look at some scripture around this issue and around this emotion and see what James, the brother of Jesus, had to say about it. And then I want to look at what the Apostle Paul had to say about it. And then I want to kind of dissect what is going on, what's kind of behind it. And we're going to spend a couple of weeks on this issue. And today, just kind of being able to surface what is it and kind of what's behind it. And sometimes we're not very good with self-awareness. In fact, some of you're like, oh, got this one beat. Good, I'm good with this one. It's just those people that hit brick walls when they get mad. You probably better, listen up. Hey, honey, you're the one who had to put a cast. You had to go. You probably should listen to this. I got this one figured out. And some of us, we struggle with stuff. Some of you who think you're really good at this, you're actually worse than the person who put his hand through the wall. Ugh. So I just kind of want to be able to surface and peel back some of the onion and see some of the things when we turn over some of these rocks. It's like, oh, that's ugly. And see what's going on. Because when we bring light to it, then we can actually begin to do something about it. So let's take a look at what James, the brother of Jesus, who actually, I was thinking about these first century, Bible writers. We're thinking, well, they obviously didn't deal with anger too much, did they? Well, yeah. They actually dealt with all kinds of anger issues, and not only towards their own countrymen, and especially the Jews who just could not wrap their minds around Jesus. And they're like, what more do you want? He rose from the dead. You actually saw it with your physical eyes. What more could you possibly want to see? I mean, so they had some anger issues, I'm sure, with their countrymen. And then James was stoned to death, and Paul was executed by Nero, and so he spent all kinds of time in jail, and Paul was stoned a couple of times. And so, yeah, I think they had a lot, of ability and reason to be angry, like I'm sure all of you do as well. So James says in chapter 1 and verse 29, if you have your Bibles, you want to flip open your phone to YouVersion, you can go there. But James says, understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry. We are really, really good. In fact, you know what? We don't have to be taught how to do the opposite of this. Right? I mean, your parents had to teach you how to listen and be slow to speak and slow to anger. In fact, they're trying to figure it out, how to get this kid to be slow to anger, so quick to anger. I mean, and isn't that the truth? I mean, we are so quick not to listen because we don't really want to understand. We kind of have a cognitive bias already, and so we don't even want to understand. We don't even want the facts because, you know what? Who cares about the facts? I've already come to my conclusion. And we're quick to get angry, and we're quick to speak. And James just says, guys, you know what? If you're going to follow Jesus well, you need to flip the script. You need to flip that around. You need to be quick to listen. You need to understand. You need to pre-decide that I want to understand. I may not agree, but I at least want to understand, and I want to know the facts, and I want to be honest with the facts. I'm not going to just bring my biases. I'm going to be honest with the facts. And that way I could be slow to speak and slow to get angry. And why is that? Why is this, James? Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. In our human anger, in the way that we go about anger, it doesn't produce in us. It produces something. James just says what it produces isn't healthy. It's dysfunctional. It actually brings chaos. It divides. It breaks things apart. It's not good. It doesn't bring the righteousness that God desires. It doesn't bring the right living that God desires, that we would live right. Well, the Apostle Paul, he says in Ephesians chapter 4, and if you got your Bibles, you just come backwards a few letters and you'll run into Ephesians. But Paul says, don't sin by letting anger control you. Okay, so Paul, how can we allow anger to evolve and devolve into sin? To which Paul would say, it devolves and evolves into sin when you allow it to control you. When this emotion rises up in you and it rises up in me, and we have a decision, what are we going to do with it? Are we going to allow it to take over and become the boss of us and to kind of, say, hey, I want you to hit that person. Okay, that's what I'll do then. I want you to do this to this. I want you to talk this way to this person. Okay, whatever you say, anger, you're in charge. You're in control. I want you to withdraw emotionally from your spouse. That's what I want you to do right now. Oh, okay. What's wrong, honey? Nothing. Oh, it seems like something. No, everything's fine. Oh, but that's not anger, because that's not putting your fist through the wall. Oh, it's anger. We're just really, really good at hiding it. We are professional hiders of anger. Not letting sin control us. Well, I'm just, you're a little sarcastic. Well, that's, it's just kind of fun. It's just kind of fun. No, I think maybe you're angry at this person over here and you're using sarcasm over here to poke and prod the person over here because you're kind of mad at them. No. See, we allow in so many ways, and we're going to get into this, anger to control us, and it leads us to sin. And it leads to sin because it leads us to mistreat people who are made in God's image. And so Paul says, don't let the sun go down while you are still angry. And those of you who grew up very conservative Baptist like I did, and you took every every single thing literally, like a literal interpretation, like you know what, the sun is almost down and I'm still angry, I don't know what to do with it, and God's going to be mad at me if I don't, hide this anger, do something with this anger, and the sun's almost down, and oh no. Okay, just let me free you for a second, okay? The point that Paul wants to make is, I want you to keep short accounts, and I want you to deal with it quickly. Okay, my wife and I, we tried this. I would not recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it. In fact, when you're really, really tired and you think, you're really angry with one another, in fact, you can't even function, you can't even talk, I would highly suggest you not try to stay up longer and deal with that. I would suggest maybe you get some sleep. You get some sleep and then you deal with it. What Paul is saying, I want you to deal with it, and I want you to deal with it quickly, but hey, you know what? My point is, hey, the sun's almost down, and God's going to be mad at you if you don't deal with it. I want you to keep short accounts. And I want you to keep short accounts because anger gives a foothold to the devil. If you just sweep it under the rug, your way of dealing with it is just sweep it under the rug. Like we're not even going to deal with it. We're not going to talk about it because we never talk about it, and we just sweep it under the rug. Paul just says, hey, you just need to know what's going to happen. Not only are you going to begin to allow anger to control you, and you think you're dealing with it because you don't even really feel it, at this moment, you don't even really feel it. You think it's past, and you kind of swept it on really deep, and so it's way down there, and you don't think it's there. He just says, hey, you just need to know you're going to give the devil a foothold. And he's begin to drive a wedge. He's going to begin to drive a wedge between you and your spouse. He's going to begin to drive a wedge between you and your neighbors. He's going to begin to drive a wedge between you and your coworkers and you and your boss. And every single person, you and your children, he's going to begin to drive a wedge. When you allow anger to control you, the devil will exploit it and use it. And so he says, I just want to sum this whole thing up by saying, hey, I want you to get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. To which, Paul's readers had been going, huh? Well, that sounds good, but how? I don't know how to do that. And in the next verse, he gives us some reasons on how to do it, and we're going to actually deal with that next week. We're going to talk about how to deal with that next week. But I want to be able to talk about what is going on when we experience this emotion of anger, and how do we begin to subtly and insidiously actually begin to allow it to control us without us even knowing, because we're not self-awareness enough, and sometimes it's difficult for us to see it in the mirror to deal with this emotion of anger. So one of the things you need to know whenever we, in our human anger, deal with anger, we're not getting what we want. To which I know the argument and I know the pushback, but Eric, it's good for my children to do that. It's good for my children to have that. It's good for my children to experience that. That might be true, but the reason they're not doing it is because, and the reason you're angry around, you're not getting what you want. They're not doing what you want them to do. And we're not getting what we want. The reason your 2-year-old is flopping on the floor in the middle of Walmart, screaming at the top of his lungs, flopping all over the place, making a scene for everyone to see, is because he or she is not getting what they want. Anger is always, in our human anger, we're not getting what we want. And we need to know this, because in the middle, if in the middle of this emotion it starts to rise up in you and you say, you know what? It might be valid that I am feeling this way, but I also just need to know I'm not getting what I want. It actually starts to bring the temperature down. It starts to bring the temperature down. What else is going on? Well, when we experience the emotion of anger, there is typically always an offense that has taken place. And we don't always see it as an offense. And when this is what we don't diagnose this very well. But an offense has taken place, and something was taken. Something was taken from you, and something was taken from me. And let me tease this out, because as we kind of talk about some of these things and surface them, you're going to be able to go, so that's what that was. See, some of you, your reputation was taken. People thought of you up here. And then someone came, they came along and they said something to someone else about you, and someone else's thoughts about you that used to be up here, now they're down here. And your reputation was taken. And when your reputation is taken and you know what? And needlessly, it makes you what? Angry. Why does it make you angry? Because something was taken from you. Some of you, your spouses, you know what? Respect. Respect maybe was taken from you. You thought that they would respect you, and right, maybe even publicly they say something or they do something that is so disrespectful. And respect was taken from you. Some of you, your childhood was taken. You didn't even have a childhood. You were like having to be the adult in the room. You were having to be mom when you were way, you know what, in like middle school. All of a sudden, you're mom, or all of a sudden, you're in high school. You got to take care of the rest of your siblings. You're the most responsible person in the house. And your childhood was taken from you. Your innocence. Maybe your innocence, maybe you grew up in a house where there was no boundaries whatsoever. I mean, they had porn going. Your mom and dad, they wanted to live however they wanted to live. They wanted to drink this, and they wanted to smoke that, and they wanted to watch this, and you were just kind of there, so you were just kind of there. And they just, no boundaries, and your innocence was taken from you. Maybe it was your dad. Maybe you grew up without a dad because dad chose to leave and he abandoned you. He abandoned you, and how could he possibly have taken that from you? Who does that? Maybe it was a mom, and maybe they were physically taken from you. Maybe it was stability in the home, where it should have been stable, but it wasn't. It was taken from you. Maybe it was money. Maybe you did some work for someone, and you know what? At the end of the job, they didn't pay you. Maybe you were in a business deal and or a partnership, and the partner went around your back and did all kinds of stuff. Maybe it was even in a marriage, and your spouse went around your back and did a bunch of stuff financially you didn't know anything about, and all of a sudden you got all kinds of debt, and now you're going to have to pay some of this debt, and you're thinking, what in the world is going on? You have every right to be angry about that because it was taken from you. Maybe it was trust. Trust was taken. You should have been able to trust, but it was taken from you. Maybe it was loyalty was taken from you. Maybe it's stupidity. And I put that one in there for me. Don't ask my wife. But I put that one in there for me because some of you beat the living tar out of yourself because of the stupid decisions that you've made. You owe you. How could I have possibly been so stupid? I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I made that decision. I can't believe I followed through with it. I can't believe I did that again. I just keep doing that. God, you shouldn't forgive me. God should be unbelievably angry with me. I owe him so much and he should just always be angry with me. And if I beat myself up enough, maybe God will like me a little bit better. And so I'm just going to never, ever allow me to come underneath this, this beating that I continue to do to myself because of my own stupidity. I owe myself. I took some stuff from myself. And I owe myself. Maybe it was your purity. Maybe it was your purity. You thought he loved you. He said all the right things. He did all the right stuff. And And you're thinking, man, he loves me, so you know what? I'm just gonna give myself away to this guy. And then you found out that he took something from you. And he didn't care about you. He just wanted something for himself. And you could provide it. And he took it from you. Etc. 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 You fill in the blank. And I'm telling you what, if I gave you the microphone and you came up and I gave you the microphone, all of you online in your living rooms, wherever it is you are, and you could tell us your story, we would sit up here and say, you have every right to be angry. You should be angry. You get a pass. You get a pass. You should be angry. You should stay angry. You should make them pay. Because something was taken from you. So what's going on? See, a debt-to-debtor relationship starts. A debt-to-debtor relationship starts. Something was taken, so somebody owes. We were equal, and then you took something from me, so now there's a debt-to-debtor relationship. You owe me. This is why even when some of our language around this, you say, when you're teaching your children, when they do something wrong to someone else, what do we say to them? You owe them what? An apology. You owe them. There's a debt. It's not right. The relationship isn't right. It's debt to debtor. And you owe them an apology to make it right again. So anger just simply says, you owe me, and I'm going to make you pay. That's what anger says, and that's what anger does, and that's what anger is. Human anger says, you know what? You took something from me, and I'm going to make you pay. I will pay them back. The problem is, them usually aren't around. Have you noticed this? Them usually aren't around. Them may not even be in the same town as you. Them may not even be living. Them aren't even anywhere close. So how are we going to make them pay when them aren't around? We don't know what to do with it, do we? And you know what? We're trying to be good Christians, and so I don't know what to do with it. And I thinking that doing something physically to someone else and me landing up in jail is not what God would want me to do. So what am I going to do with it? And there isn't any midlife therapeutic football games that I'm aware of that are where I can just go out and hit someone as hard as I want. So what do we do with it? We bottle it up, don't we? We bottle it up, we sweep it under, and we hope it goes away. And the one who does this the best looks the most spiritual. But here's what you need to know, and here's what you need to know. If you are watching, come on. I realize you're fixing a sandwich right now. Just turn to the TV. Here's the thing. It leaks out of us. It is impossible. It is impossible to hide anger. It's impossible. It will leak out of you. It will leak out of you. Let me show you some ways that it leaks. Our tone becomes sharp. All of a sudden it's like you're short with someone. When you're like, you didn't need to be short. All of a sudden there's a sharpness in your tone that kind of had a little edge on it. And the occasion didn't call for the edge. And the other person's like, whoa, where'd that come from? That came from anger from over here that you didn't deal with, and it's in you, and now it's leaking out of you onto someone else. We become emotionally withdrawn. And depending on your temperament, if you're in a marriage, isn't this amazing? We become insidiously awesome at this, right? We become great at emotionally withdrawing from one another. And it's like, we call it the silent treatment, but it's not, you can't be too silent because you don't even want them to know that you're making them pay. You don't want them to know. You don't want them to find out. You kind of just want to be around the back where it's, you know what, you act like everything's fine, but everything's not fine. It's just ugly. We explode over minor offenses. It's like you're carrying this anger inside of you, and all of a sudden someone says something, and the offense is right here, and your response to the offense is up here. And everyone in the room is kind of like, whoa, where did that come from? I mean, all he did was leave the milk out overnight. He forgot to put it back in the refrigerator. I mean, did we have to totally pounce on him for that? And it leads to everyone's walking on eggshells. Maybe you're in a home where this is happening, where it's like all of a sudden someone just, whoa. And so, they're walking on eggshells because they have no idea. They are so afraid they're going to say the wrong thing because they have no idea. It's just what sets it off. It's like, man, you say the wrong thing or you touch the wrong thing, you do the wrong thing, and you never really know what it is. It just kind of depends on the day. And we have this explosion. What's going on? We become sarcastic. Oh, this one is so great. This one's so great. Here's what we do. We don't want anyone to really know that we're kind of angry, and so here's the thing. We're just going to say something. We're going to say something about this person, but we're going to say it in a sarcastic. We're going to put humor on it, and humor kind of takes the edge off a little bit, and humor makes it sound kind of funny, and everyone's going to laugh about it. And yet, if we kind of peel it back far enough, it's you poking this other person. It's a jab. Sarcasm is great at jabbing someone. Sarcasm is a fantastic way to make someone else pay. And we think in a funny way. And we have imaginary conversations. Now, whenever I talk about this, and I've talked about this several times, apparently I'm the only one who struggles with this one. I don't know if you have imaginary do any of you have imaginary if you're in your living room by yourself, you can just raise your hand right now. You just I have imaginary conversations with yourself. You're like driving home from work, and this person at work, you know what, they said this thing, and you're like reviewing it in your mind over and over and over again, and pretty soon you're having this conversation. You're thinking, oh man, if I interact with them, and if they say this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to say, I'm going to give them this oratorial barrage, and just they're going to wilt under my amazing intellect on this issue, and they're going to be so sorry that they took me on because I'm right and they're wrong and I'm angry and they should apologize. Okay, maybe I'm the only one who deals with that. This is my way. Whenever this is beginning in me, I have become self-aware that there's an anger issue in Eric's heart that he needs to deal with. The thing is, we are not very good at self-awareness. So let me illustrate this. I want to introduce you to Mr. and Mrs. Mugg. Okay, so here's Mr. and Mrs. Mugg, and here's Boss Man Mugg. He looks grumpy already, doesn't he? Boss Man Mugg's always grumpy. Here's the kiddo Muggs. Here's the kiddo mugs. And if you were along with us on the ride of our temperaments actually affect how we deal with angers. We think it's just the reds. The reds, they're the only temperament that deal with anger. They have anger issues. They need to deal with that. Because everyone can see the red's anger. But the green, they're just so much like Jesus. They're actually just really good at hiding it. And the yellows, they're either way up here or they're way down here, and they just like, woo. And then there's Mrs. Mug. She's just pink. She's perfect. Like all of you wives are. I tell you what, it's unbelievable. And then there's blue, right? Here's blue. Here's blue. When blue becomes really, really, really angry, blues are great at kind of masking their anger. They're just concerned. They're concerned in a very critical way, but they're just concerned in a very critical way because that anger is going to come right through the critic part of them. And so here's what happens, and let me kind of illustrate, Mr. and Mrs. Mug, they're in their dating years, and it's like, you are amazing. You're just the best person on the planet. I just can't get enough of you. No, you're better than me. You're just unbelievable. Oh my gosh. Let's get married. Should we Yes, let's get married. Woo, kissy, 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 kissy. It's going to be like this for all of our life. It's just unbelievable. You are amazing. Unbelievable. I don't know what's wrong with everyone else, but we are just perfect for one another. It's just amazing. And then we're just living life and going on, and then all of a sudden, like, whoa, where did that come from? I didn't see that when we were dating. I married like this satanic woman. I don't know what in the world's going on. And we just kind of keep bumping into each other, and we think, you know what? It's their fault. If they would quit, if you would quit saying that, and if you would quit doing that, and if you would start doing this, and if you would do what I want you to do, you know what? Those beads wouldn't come out of me. You're the one that's causing that to happen, so just stop it. So here's what I want you to know. The reason the beads come out of Mr. and Mrs. Mug is because that's what's in there. Are you writing this down? Are you writing? The reason it comes out of them is because it is in them. And we think it's the other person that's causing this to come out of me. It's their fault. It's not me. And Mr. Mug, he goes off and it goes to work, and then there's Boss Man Mug. Boss Man Mug, who knows what's going on in Boss Man Mug's home? And you know what? He's bringing all this stuff, and his wife bumps into him, and dadgummit, and he's bringing all this stuff down to here. And you know what? He's like, I don't know what to do with this. I can't, I don't want to go to jail, so I'm going to come over here. And then all of a sudden, it leaks on Mr. Blue. And Mr. Blue's like, what's up with that? You red beast? So dadgummit, and now he's going to come home, and he's holding all of this angst and this stuff inside of him, and he doesn't know it. And so all of a sudden, he's sharp with the kids, and he's bumping, and the kids are like, would you just lay off? All I did was, that seems way over the top. And we don't understand that the reason it comes out of us is because that's what's in us. And we think, you know what? Forget you. You know what? If I leave you, then, you know what? That will fix you keep making these beads from coming out of me. And so we leave, and we find someone else who's like, oh, you are just so much better. Unbelievable. I don't know why I didn't see, you know what? You're just amazing. And all of a sudden we have new Mr. and Mrs. Mug, and they go along, and all of a sudden, oh my goodness, how can the world could it have happened twice? Because those beads that were in you are still in you. And get this, wherever you go, there you are. And what's the common denominator in all of these? Me. It's me. See, we think if I just get a new job, if I get a new boss, you know what, if I get a different family, if I get a new town, if I could just start over, you know what, then maybe this wouldn't keep going on. And yet I get a new family, I get a new job, I get a new boss, I get a new deal, and it's like wherever I go, there I am. And we think, you know what? So I'm just going to start playing this little game where, you know what? I'm going to act like everything's fine, but everything's not fine. And so I'm going to emotionally withdraw from you. I'm going to become sarcastic. I'm going to start digging without you even thinking I'm digging. I'm going to make you pay. It's insidious. And it is impossible to follow Jesus very well when this whole dynamic is going on. And this is why I want the church to do a much better job of helping the church understand what is going on with anger. To which you might be asking, okay, Eric, I'm seeing what's going on here. How do you deal with it? Well, you're going to have to come back next week, find that out. But here's what I want you to do. Here's your homework. Do we have we got homework. Here's what I want you to do. This week, I guarantee you, you're going to have opportunities where something's going to bump into you and someone's going to say something to you and you're going to feel the beads coming to the surface. Here's what I want you to grab one of them and I want you to look at it. And I want you to examine it. And I want you to become self-aware of what it actually is. What is it? Where's it coming from? And for some of you, you're going to have to do a whole bunch of work because your heart is so cloudy. And I'm telling you what, it is impossible. It's impossible to live and become an old person without becoming a very angry, grumpy, old man or woman if you don't learn how to deal with anger. And it will leak out. It's going to leak out on your adult children. It's going to leak out on your grandchildren. It's going to leak out on your employers. It's going to leak out on your employees. It's going to leak out on your neighbors. Don't ask me if it leaks out on the ref. Right? It leaks. So, crossing. We want to follow Jesus well. Let's do the hard work of learning how to deal with this powerful emotion that all of us experience. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this morning. Thank you for the opportunity to gather around your word and examine, God, this emotion that we all experience. And God, there's some great things that can happen through this emotion of anger, but so many times, God, we allow it to become human anger and not righteous anger. We allow it to control our lives, and some of us, we think we have it licked. We think we don't struggle with it, and yet as they've heard this morning and they hear how we hide it and mask it, it's like, ooh. Oh, so God, I pray that if there's someone here and they're even making themselves pay, they're so angry with themselves, they're angry with someone else, and sometimes they know what that is, sometimes they don't know, and it surfaces, it kind of comes out of nowhere. But I pray, God, this week as things surface, they would take the opportunity to actually examine it and to see it for what it is. And then, God, I pray that you would teach us how to deal with it. Thank you for loving us and helping us through a very difficult emotion to deal with. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right. Well, we are here with Pastor Eric, and man, Every time you bring out those jars, I always love it, but I hate it because, man, I realize so much how true it is and how much we let those things just build up inside of us, and then, man, just thinking about the ways that I let it spill out of me. So, thinking about that, I think we all can easily relate to that illustration and relate to what you're talking about, but how do we share that with somebody else without coming across like, hey, you're a jerk that has anger issues, you need to listen to this sermon or something? How can we help others realize this is some of what's going on?
Yeah, approach is everything, right? And so I would say it is maybe one of the most difficult things. And here's what I've done many, many times, and I'm sure that Jen has done it for me. I leave it in God's hands, and I pray that God would bring about a softness towards an issue that maybe we've locked heads about, and we can't communicate without it just without us just shutting down.
Yeah.
So praying that God would provide that opening or that opportunity, or praying that God would bring about a retreat, or God would bring about a person that would bring that issue to the surface where you could talk about it.
Gotcha.
Without blowing up.
Yeah, without blowing up. That's the key right there, is definitely what it is. So, so I guess kind of quick answer to that question is just pray, because God's going to provide. Something that we're constantly reminded of is we can only control ourselves. We can't control others. And so prayer is a very effective tool when it comes to this.
The other thing I would say about that is you need to start with you. Whenever it's like you, that's it. I mean, it just shut down. So I would always start with me, and here's some things, man, you have mentioned these things in me, and I'm seeing and I'm trying to work on some of these things. That fosters openness to talk about issues.
Because unfortunately, we're not perfect. I wish we were. It would make things a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
But, so kind of the last one that I have is how can each temperament kind of begin to address the anger that they have in them? Because, I mean, maybe what works for you, looking at me, I'm like, I don't know if that's going to work for me. So what are some different ways that we can kind of begin to recognize what it is that's really happening?
I think that's the key is becoming self-aware. And I don't think there's a prescription for how each temperament becomes self-aware for them that's across the board for their entire temperament. But the thing that I think that's the reason why I think circles are better than rows is because in rows, you don't have to talk to anybody. Yeah. And in a circle, you might become self-aware of something you didn't even see because of a conversation. And so it is a process, that process of self-awareness. I have been in a guys group or some type of a group since college. And so it's been a process of 30 years of becoming more and more self-aware. And I still have a whole bunch to learn. So it's a process of becoming self-aware. But the more that we do, then you have to have the courage to actually act on that self-awareness or just hide it away.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. So encouragement for you guys, if you're not already part of a life group, to jump in, find one. You can download our Church Center app, and we actually have the different life groups that are available on there. And you could also just talk to Pastor Barry. He'll be able to kind of get you plugged into one. But if you are involved in a life group, man, take advantage of those relationships, because that's where it all happens. Yeah. That really is where it's at, and where we can begin to realize what's happening inside of us and work through some of those issues and things. So, well, we want to thank you guys for tuning in with us. Be sure to catch up with us next week as we continue on in this series and actually learn a little bit more about what we're supposed to do when addressing these emotions. So thanks for tuning in, Crossing.